Iowa Live.
From the Carl Chevrolet Studios in West Des Moines, welcome to Iowa Live. I am Lou, and time to visit with attorney Kim Baer and talk about something that a lot of people need to keep in mind, especially if you might be happening to change jobs recently, because there are a lot of things that you need to keep in mind in case that happens.
Yes. So if you are either starting a job or you're going to change a job, you really need to look at your employment contract to see whether or not you have a non-compete in that employment contract.
Now, do employment contracts, do they always have to point out the non-compete, or could it be just part of a whole document that you sign and say, hey, here's your document, sign this, and you're good?
Yeah, it can be part of the whole document. There's no duty to point it out to you. What we do get into is when people call us and say, hey, I signed this non-compete, it was part of my contract, can you take a look at it for us or for me? And what we look at first is, was it part of a job offer? Because there has to be consideration for you agreeing not to compete with your employer. And so what I mean by that, Lou, is if let's say I have a pizza company and I'm going to hire you and you're going to be my chef and I'm going to teach you my secret recipe.
Right.
So, and I say, okay, as part of the job offer, you're also going to have to sign a non-compete. Or I give you a contract and there's a non-compete in there. The consideration, in other words, what I'm giving you in order to give up your ability to go compete with me later, is the job offer. So if you accept the job offer, then usually that's one of the prongs we've met, and so it might be enforceable if it meets the rest of the requirements.
So it isn't always monetary. So they can say, you sign the non-compete, I'll give you X number of dollars. It could be, you sign the non-compete and I give you a job.
Exactly. So it needs to be part of the job offer. So, you know, if you're an employer, you need to pay attention to that as well. I mean, it can't be one of those things where I hire you, you come and work for me, and then a week later I'm like, I should have had him sign a non-compete.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've already given you the job, so now there's no consideration. So that's when we then get to money. So if I forgot to have you sign one and now I want to have you sign one, I need to give you a raise, maybe a job title, you know, but there has to be some type of consideration. And typically we tell people that should include some type of money because it needs to be voluntary on your part, that you're agreeing to it, and you need to be paid something or given something for giving up that right.
Okay, let's talk about what would happen in case somebody is terminated or they quit. Is there a difference between being terminated or quitting?
Usually not. Usually not. Usually the way, I mean, it depends on how it's written, but usually the way it's written, it's going to say from the last day of your employment, whether you quit or whether you've been fired. So in Iowa, the courts will enforce non-competes. They're not favored, so because of that, there are some strict requirements that the non-compete has to follow.
What do you mean they're not favored? What does that mean?
Well, because courts, you know, we're an at-will state and we're at a right-to-work state.
Right, you hear that all the time.
Yes, and so courts want to make sure that you have the ability to, you know, go work in the profession that you chose, continue to, you know, find new jobs and have employment.
Right.
You know, but they do recognize that a non-compete can be enforceable if it meets certain requirements.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that we need to keep in mind.
Right, so first of all, the first question that the court usually asks is the non-compete, is it reasonably necessary to protect somebody's business? So I'll give you an example. You know, if you come work for me at McDonald's and I have you sign a non-compete and then you leave and you go work at Wendy's, is the fact that Lou left McDonald's really going to hurt McDonald's? It might not, and so that's a question that the court's going to look at. But if I have a small boutique store and I have things that I import from all over the world and you know all about that and you go down the street and open up your own boutique store, well then maybe I really do have an interest in protecting that information.
Got it.
So you have that. So then the next question is it reasonably restrictive? And for that, what we tell people is it usually has to have borders, a geographical limit. Sometimes it's mileage, like it might be 50 miles within Des Moines. It might be the state of Iowa. It might be 50 miles or 100 miles within any office that I have or any store that I have. And then it needs to be limited in time. And with regard to time, what we're seeing is, you know, courts usually will uphold 1 and 2 year, you know, non-competes. I recently saw a case, I think last year, where the court said that 7 years was too long, you know, 10 years was too long. It really just kind of depends. Now, if I'm selling you a business and you're going to want a non-compete from me, and maybe then it can be longer. So it just kind of, it really does vary situation to situation. So, and then obviously, if we're in the pizza business, I can't have a non-compete that says you're not going to work at any restaurant.
Right.
It has to be.
Broad.
It's too broad. It has to be narrowly drawn.
So you can't open up a pizza place.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to open up a pizza place and use my information for sure. But you might be able to go work at a Chinese restaurant, or something like that. So.
All right. So a lot of questions, and yes, non-competes are enforceable in the state of Iowa. So let's answer that question right off the bat here. People have questions about non-competes and what they should do in case they are changing jobs or they have a non-compete presented to them. What should they do?
Yeah, just give us a call. We work with employers and employees all the time on these issues. 515-279-2000. We'd be happy to take a look at whatever you need.
All right, BearLawOffice.com as well to get all the information. Kim Baer, thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Lou.
All right, we'll be right back.